I feel so productive today. It's not even noon yet, and I have already dusted the house. I have vacuumed the house. I have mopped the bathroom, the kitchen, and my room, and I'm totally clean now. Plus, I've already paid my rent for this month. Not this month, but my rent out of my paycheck, so that's all taken care of. So, almost everything's out of the way, and it's not even noon yet. So, I thought I'd shoot you guys a video. And before I get started, even though I said it on Twitter, and I'm going to say it again, I want to wish a very, very happy birthday to the Tim Tracker. Happy birthday, Tim, and just like you said in your tweet back to me, yes, we will definitely hang out sometime in the near future, hopefully in September when I come down, or maybe in December when I come down, or hopefully on a more permanent basis when I move down in 2017. So, that's pretty much what I wanted to say about Tim, and like I said, I always keep bringing up Tim and Jen because they are partially the reason I'm even doing this YouTube channel and even shooting these iPod videos that I'm posting for everyone to see. That and, of course, Dr. Jimmy. So, continued shout-outs to all three of them. But, I've got everything clean, so the house is nice. My mom will return tomorrow after 6:30. So, she basically will go into hardcore clean, get-ready mode because she leaves the next afternoon. Excuse me. So, basically, that's pretty much the end of that part of this conversation. Tonight, of course, I've got to work, and hopefully I got a ride because I really need one. I definitely need a ride home tonight because I don't want to walk home because it's supposed to be like 30s, like low 30s, high 20s tonight. So, not interested in that, not whatsoever. So, hopefully someone will come out to be able to take me home tonight. I don't know if it'll be Austin, or it'll be Will, or it'll be someone completely out of the ordinary, but that'll work nonetheless. Now, I want to say one thing real quick about this light situation. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know why it's so bright, but I'm sorry about this. But anyway, it's Friday, and you know what Friday means? Friday means TNA Impact recap. And of course, TNA, I watched it last night, and I very much enjoyed the show. As I said on Twitter, basically, TNA Impact last night was a very enjoyable, very storyline-driven, very storyline progression show to get us ready for Lockdown. Because we've got one more show until Lockdown, and that will be this Thursday night. And then, of course, will be the last live TNA Impact taping that's going to be, well, live to tape in this case. Well, actually, no, it is live. Actual last live TNA Impact taping at the Impact Zone until they go full-time on the road starting next week. Well, March 14th. No, long day. Starting next week's Impact. Not this coming Thursday, not the one like in a week after that. Next week, the week after, they're going to be in Chicago. So, that's going to be full-time on the road. So, as usual, I figured out a better way to do this. And instead of being able to sit down in my chair and relax and just look upward, which I'm sure you guys are quite tired of, and I don't blame you, honestly, because it looks kind of bad. But what I'm doing now is, as I told you guys in an earlier video, I changed my desktop. I got rid of it completely, and I hooked my television monitor, my HD flat screen television monitor, up to my computer. So it has a dual purpose of using as a computer and as a television. So when I watch my movies online, I'm going to feel like I'm actually watching on the big screen. Well, a bigger screen. So that's awesome. And I really like how this setup is. And I figured out the best way to do these recaps for Raw and Impact, and I guess from now on, I guess AJ's Weekend Movie Reviews on Sunday as well, would be to stand up and just watch the screen. So that way I'm not staring up the entire video. So I hope you guys will appreciate that. I'm still reading verbatim from a lot of things, but I did want to bring up a couple of things as well. So, this is last night's TNA Impact review. As usual, we're going to talk about the segments, and I'm going to tell you what my opinions are on the segments. We talked an hour on Raw, and that was a 3-hour broadcast. So, hopefully at least 40 minutes today. I don't know. We'll see. Sinuses. Sorry about that. But of course, we started off with our voiceover guy, which gave us our previously on TNA Impact. They announced Lethal Lockdown. Of course, it's going to be Team TNA against Aces and Eights at Lockdown. Bully Ray was selected as the #1 contender to Jeff Hardy's TNA World Heavyweight Championship, even though we had 8 men battle for that shot. It wasn't really a tournament, but it was basically to impress Hulk Hogan, who was going to grant the winner, I guess it would say to grant the winner or the person who impressed him the most, even if they lost, the shot against Jeff Hardy at Lockdown. And, of course, at the end of the show, we basically set up this six-man tag, which was Aces and Eights members, and they finally did it right. Doc, Devon, and Mr. Anderson against Sting, Bully Ray, and the return of Hulk Hogan, who we haven't seen in-ring since 2011, I believe. I don't believe he was in-ring at all in 2012, but 2011, I'm pretty sure it was the last time. I don't know if it was Bound for Glory, if it was an Impact after that, but I do remember October for Bound for Glory in 2011. But there might have been another show match, like JJ said, it might have involved Abyss. I don't know, possibly. Or no, it wasn't JJ, it was Donnie, it said. Sometimes I get my podcast messed up because I listen to a lot of them. But, shout out to the SNS Radio Network, WNS Podcast, and The O Show, as well as PW Insider. These are all radio shows I listen to on the regular. So, that's how I get some of my wrestling days. Anyway, so of course during that match, Sting came out, Bully Ray came out, and the Aces and Eights were already in the ring, and no Hulk Hogan the whole time. And basically he was jumped and left for dead. His shirt was torn, he was clutching his knee, so Aces and Eights did a number on him, and that's the reason why we didn't see the return of Hulk Hogan. And that makes total sense. I thought that was going to happen, or the other obvious answer is the fact that Sting and Bully Ray are pretty much getting beat down 3-2, and then all of a sudden Hogan's music hits. He comes down like a house of fire and takes them all out, but they went a completely different direction, and Aces and Eights ended up winning the match. But we start off with a video from earlier today, taken backstage at TNA Impact, which you would notice if you guys done Halloween Horror Nights before. Definitely one of the sound stages for Halloween Horror Nights. I believe it was maybe Gothic, possibly. I don't recall. I think it was Gothic. I'm not exactly positive off the top of my head. Gothic, maybe Silent Hill. It's definitely the direction you would go to for Grinchmas. So, if that makes any sense, for islands, and of course you have to walk over, use the backway path to get to Grinchmas, which is actually take place at the soundstage, which is at Universal Studios, not Islands. But anyway, so the pyro hits, and it was awesome to see. Todd and Mike TNA welcomed us to the opening of TNA Impact. Bully Ray's music starts, and and I've been at the Impact Zone, and I want to talk about the Impact Zone, actually, as we progress through this video. Bully Ray's really over at the Impact Zone, and I'm sure it really came off that way at home, because it did to me. So Bully Ray goes out, and he basically is looking for Taz, and of course he is nowhere to be found, because Taz is basically hiding, and I totally understand, because I don't think I want Bully Ray mad at me. And if I was Taz, I'd probably run, and that's exactly what he did. He didn't really run, but he didn't show up, so he's being very cowardly. And that's exactly what Bully Ray called him out on. So basically, Bully Ray is the first one to say it. It's really cool to be back in the Impact Zone. He's never been more pissed off in his life. Says the Aces and Eights have been running roughshod over TNA for the past year. And basically talking about how they took out all the superstars. They took out Eric Young, they took out Magnus. And they even took out Hulk Hogan. And they took out Jeff Hardy. And basically, they're just going after everyone. And also, of course, they ruined Bully's wedding to Brooke. Now, last week should have been a huge week for TNA with Hulk Hogan's in-ring return, but once again, the Aces and Eights ruined that just as well. Ray swears to God he's going to get his hands on the Aces and Eights. His former partner, Devon, especially. So, Bully Ray and Devon is definitely going to happen somewhere sooner rather than later. But Bully says there is one guy he wants to speak to, and he does introduce who's going to be his opponent at Lockdown, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, Jeff Hardy. And another thing, too. Impact Zone loves Jeff Hardy, and I mean loves Jeff Hardy. If you saw the guy on television, he's kind of short, and he's wearing the, honestly, TNA, local wrestling fans that are watching this video, guy looks like Chris King, honestly. And he has the Wolfpack style red Sting face paint. And he dresses like a backyarder. Yeah, he's at every TNA Impact show. And he's a huge Jeff Hardy mark. Oh my God, he's a huge Jeff Hardy mark. I actually, before Impact in September, I went to the bathroom at Blue Man, because that's the closest bathroom I can get to without going back into the park and going into City Walk. So I went to use that bathroom. Well, after that, I bumped into him putting on his face paint, so that was interesting. Guy didn't talk at all. But he's, of course, on the guardrail this whole time, and it makes total sense. So Jeff Hardy comes out, he's got both titles, he's got his belt, and he's got the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. So both title belts over his shoulders. He gets in the ring, and he poses for the crowd. He gets face-to-face with Bully Ray, and they bump fists, so that works fine. Ray says, "Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be standing across from you once again, wrestling for the most prestigious title in professional wrestling." Bully Ray proceeds to tell Hardy that he doesn't feel right getting the title shot this way, that he's only getting the title shot because he's Hulk Hogan's son-in-law now, and not via his own personal merits, which, of course, anybody that has seen the evolution of Bully Ray and TNA, going from Bubba Ray Dudley, who was primarily a singles competitor, who was used periodically in ECW when they needed a big heel to go up against Taz, when Taz was was ECW World Heavyweight Champion. But mainly he was seen as a singles competitor. He was not seen as a singles competitor, he was seen as a tag team competitor. But Bully Ray has lost a lot of weight, and he's in the best shape of his career, and he's putting on the best matches of his career now. He's got a rejuvenation here in TNA, and I'll tell you right now, I think Bully Ray deserves the World Heavyweight Championship, and I hope bookers agree with me, and that he gets the championship at Lockdown on March 10th. But we'll talk about that in the not so near future, not so distant future either. So he says, "This isn't the way I really want to face you," and he isn't positive he's the right guy to face Jeff Hardy at Lockdown. Jeff says, "It's great to be back in Impact," and he's back in the zone. Of course, all the fans popped for it, because the fans of Impact Zone love Jeff Hardy. I can back that up completely, being there live 5 times. So Hardy does make the statement he would have chosen Bully Ray as his opponent if he had the choice, and he brought up their history and all the ladders they've climbed, and all the chairs they've swung against each other, and all the tables they've gone through. Of course, building up the fact that they've had a history of putting the TLC match on the map in professional wrestling. Hardy says they've reinvented themselves. It's very true, because you have a very rejuvenated Bully Ray. He's not on the twilight of his career, he's actually in the prime of his career right now. And Jeff Hardy, ever since, he's come a long way since that match against Sting, where he was so out of it that the match lasted like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So, Jeff Hardy's cleaned up his act, he's completely sober, he's back caring about professional wrestling, caring about the business in general, and he's putting on great matches consistently, and that is why he is TNA World Heavyweight Champion. That and the fact that he sells a buttload of merchandise. But that's another story altogether. But we'll get to that somewhere down the line as well. Now, this show of respect is interrupted by the greatest tag team in professional wrestling today, Bad Influence, the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian. They make their way to the ring, of course, Kaz sporting, later on, of course, sporting his Kazamania shirt, which I always enjoy. And, of course, Daniels is nursing his Appletini, as always. So, basically, Kazarian says Bully should feel bad he got the title shot, because he surely didn't earn it. He was given the title shot. Daniels grabs the mic and says, "The only person who deserves the main event Lockdown less than is Hardy himself," and he blames the poisonous face paint of being the reason why he lost, because he had an allergic reaction, and of course that's why he got pinned. I love that idea. That's amazing. That's classic heel 101 from Christopher Daniels, and he's one of the masters. He is a ring general, and he's a promo expert, so props to Daniels once again. Now, Daniels says if they're done glad-handing each other, it's time to get out of the ring so the Impact crowd can worship them. And before he says now, Bully Ray grabs the Appletini. He drinks it to the pop of the crowd, and then he spits it back in the glass. Which, of course, we haven't seen Bully Ray spit since when he was a heel doing the Team 3D shtick. He would literally spit I don't know, what do you want to call it? A loogie? I don't like that term, but that's the one thing I can really think of. Spits a loogie up in the air and caught it in his mouth, and of course that was one thing we used to hate back in the day, but he did it and he spit it back in the glass, and since he's a babyface now, it got over with the crowd. Bully says real men don't drink Appletinis, and then we have a brawl, and of course Bad Influence powder. Bully challenges them to a tag team match later in the evening, which I'm totally down with, because anytime we get these 4 in the ring, I'm totally having no problem with it, because they're awesome and they all 4 can go. Hardy's music hits, and Daniels and Kaz react to the challenge, as well as their blatant disrespect. I like the opening. Anything that Chris Daniels does is gold, and I hope that this is the year that Chris Daniels finally is given the TNA World Heavyweight Championship to run with. I think there is money. I thought there was money before the UK tour. I think Daniels should have won the belt from Hardy and took the belt to the UK, and then if you had him, he could have dropped it back in the cage at Lockdown to Jeff Hardy. That's exactly where I would have went with it. But TNA went a completely different direction, and they did not even use Hardy. Obviously, they couldn't use Hardy on the UK tour, so they kept the belt on him, and they did an injury angle with Aces and Eights. I'm a little bit timid about believing that because it didn't really work for me. I think that they should have given Chris Daniels the belt, and I think in the near future you're going to see Christopher Daniels as TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and damn is it deserved. And of course, Kazarian will be his license manager, because of course he has a manager's license now, so I think that'll work really well. Of course, don't put anything on Kaz, because Kaz will probably be challenging maybe for the X Division Championship somewhere down the road. So, and of course you still have Bad Influence as a tag team to go after the tag team titles, and that brings up the match at Lockdown, of course, between Kaz and Daniels, and they're taking on Bobby Roode and Austin Aries and Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez in a 3-way. So that'll be really good. I'm going to really enjoy that match. I cannot wait for Lockdown. Not this Sunday, of course. That's the WDW Today live podcast and the first episode of Celebrity Apprentice. It's the next Sunday, which is going to be March 10th. So that's going to be an awesome TNA pay-per-view, and I cannot wait to watch it. But, so, we go to the announce table, and Todd and Mike are hyping up tonight's show, and Taz is nowhere to be found, of course. Obviously, he's hiding, and of course, we see Velvet Sky, and trademark WWE, she's walking! I think that's a Scott Keith reference, actually. Her matchup is next. So, Sting is shown backstage in Hogan's office, and he has Magnus with him, and he's sporting a brand new t-shirt, so obviously they're interested in pushing Magnus. Given the fact that Magnus was so over on the UK tour, and duh, I mean, obviously where he's from, it makes total sense, they're going to carry this over, and Magnus is kind of over, actually, at the Impact Zone, so why not? Why not go with it? Why not push Magnus? Magnus is young, he's talented, and he can go, and he'd be a great asset to Team TNA, and that's exactly what he's talking about. He basically says, I'm not the new green kid anymore. Sting has mentored him since he arrived in TNA, and Magnus says it's time he pays Sting back. He's not just Team TNA, he's Team Sting. Magnus says, why me? He says, why the hell not? And he leaves the office. So Sting has to contemplate if Magnus is worthy of joining Team TNA. So that's awesome. So Gail Kim, of course, is joining Todd and Mike at the announce table, because of course Taz isn't there. And she's going to be there to scout what's going to end up being her opponent at Lockdown. Of course, Gail Kim won a number 1 contenders match to determine who was going to be able to get the shot at the Knockouts Championship at Lockdown. And that's, of course, why she's on commentary. So Tara comes out to the ring, and, of course, Jesse is by her side, as always. And, of course, we go back to the 4-way elimination match where we saw Gail Kim pin Tara clean in the middle of the ring and eliminate the champion first. Of course, this ended up with Velvet Sky ended up pinning Gail Kim and winning the TNA Knockouts Championship once again. So, and that's exactly what we're talking. That's the next clip that's actually shown after Velvet's entrance. And of course, Gail Kim is continually blaming this loss on TNA Knockouts ref Taryn Terrell. And I think that you might be able to get a match out of this. If you do enough with it, I think eventually that's probably going to happen. I mean, it's going to happen on Impact. I don't think it's going to happen on pay-per-view. But I think Taryn Terrell and Gail Kim are going to have a one-off somewhere down the road. Excuse me. And I guess that works, because they're building it, so might as well. So our first match of the evening, just a quickie match here. Knockouts Championship on the line. Velvet Sky against Tara. So Tara takes the advantage early, hits some shoulder blocks in the corner, tosses Velvet to the canvas by the hair. Nice hair beal. Or hair mare, I guess in this case. Tara goes for the cover, only gets the 2 count. Tara tries again, only gets a 2 count once again. So Tara whips Velvet into the corner. Velvet gets the boots up, goes for the corner splash, sidesteps another one. This time hits a series of running clotheslines and elbows. Tara reverses the Irish whip. Velvet responds. Tilt-a-whirl satellite head scissors takeover. and it looked amazing, except for the fact that it seemed like Tara flipped at the very last second, and it looked a little awkward, but that spot always looks a little awkward anyway. So Jesse grabs Velvet Sky's ankle for the distraction, and Taryn Terrell yells at him, and basically right after that you see Velvet Sky spear Tara to the canvas and goes for the cover, but this time Jesse pulls Velvet Sky off. So Taryn Terrell gets up in his face and sends him packing to the back. This was just long enough to distract Tara, and of course she walks into the in-yo face, and 1, 2, 3. So short, and I do mean short, like 2-minute match here. But unlike WWE Divas 2-minute matches, it somewhat had a point to it, and it kind of worked for me. They're actually building up Velvet Sky to be the babyface of the division. Obviously, there's a reason to build up Mickie James as the babyface of the division, but they've done that before, and now that Velvet is finally back in TNA, they're going to run with it. And I think Velvet's going to improve, and hopefully she'll spend some ring time with her boyfriend, Chris Sabin, so she can get better in the ring and continually impress the TNA crowds. I think that she definitely beats Gail Kim at Lockdown, and we need to build up a new heel challenger. And personally, my choice is a newly brought back Madison Rayne. I think Madison Rayne should be the next challenger for the Knockouts Championship. But that probably won't happen. But we'll see what happens down the road. I'm a big Madison Rayne supporter. But anyway, so of course the match wasn't really about Tara. The match was basically about Gail Kim's issues with Taryn Terrell. And pretty much you've got that match taken care of. It's going to be Velvet Sky and Gail Kim, of course, with Taryn Terrell most likely going to be the referee, and she'll be mad about that when she loses. She'll have a reason. And then we build up to a match on Impact. So I think you have Gail Kim and Taryn Terrell coming to TNA Impact in the near future. I'd say within the next month, 2 months, I think we're going to see that match. Even if it's just a one-off, I think it's going to happen. Of course, Taryn Terrell's going to get the win. It's going to tick off Gail Kim. She's going to go for the attack, and Velvet makes a save, and we've set up another match once again. So next we see a double backstage. Austin Aries, he's lambasting Bobby Roode on the phone for not being there, and they're basically being there because there's a photo shoot going on. So Roode brought up the triple threat match, of course, with Chavo Hernandez and Kaz and Daniels over the phone. You could barely hear it. So Chavo comes out and he interrupts the call and he says Aries has a match tonight. And he says, you want a match with me? You want a match with me? And he's like, yeah, okay, we're fine with that. He's like, tonight you face Hernandez. So we're going to have Hernandez against Austin Aries. So it's very strange. And like I said, I brought up the three-way, but of course wasn't announced until this segment right here. It doesn't make much sense to announce this match via a garbled phone call that you can barely hear. But I guess TNA has their reasons. And anything that gets these 6 guys in the ring together, I'm totally okay with. So props to TNA for booking the match. Not exactly sure why they booked it on a garbled phone call. So earlier on in the day, we spot Kenny King. And Kenny King is basically asked where he's going in his career here in TNA. King says he's going right to Rob Van Dam, and that's exactly what he does. He walks up the steps, walks in the trailer, and interrupts Rob Van Dam. He basically says, I want you to tell the world right now that I am better than you. And Van Dam says, I've already beat you so many times, and he makes a final challenge. He says, you get one more title shot, one more chance to take the X Division Championship from me. But in the case that you lose, you're gone from the X Division. So that pretty much writes itself right there. So you know what's going to happen with that. And if you don't know anything about Wrestling Logic 101, and I don't think you're even watching this video. So there. So Austin makes his way to the ring for the actual second match of the evening. Bobby Roode, of course, is not in the building. Taz is now at the announce table because it's now safe to be out there. So Hernandez comes out, and of course Chavo's not in the ring. He's wearing weens. That's a shout to Big Daddy Donnie right there. So he's wearing tights, and he's not wearing pants this time around. So he's wearing, like, short trunks. Really interesting. Strange to see Hernandez like that. He doesn't really have the body type for that kind of gear. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. So we go to our second match of the evening. Nice 4.5-minute match. So we're going to start. Hernandez rushes in on Aries. He hides between the ropes, of course. He's trying to avoid punishment. I totally understand that. Aries is using his speed. He ducks under Hernandez, hits the forearm to the back. Hernandez takes him down with a kick. And he goes for the hip toss. Hernandez blocks it, gives him one of his own. He clotheslines Aries over the top to the floor. He revs up to go to the air, but he catches him with a shoulder block on the apron, which of course stops the suicide dive attempt. Aries goes for the sunset flip. Hernandez powers out, clotheslines to the mat. Aries gets his elbows up on a splash attempt, but he gets caught with a crossbody. He rakes Hernandez's eyes while caught in the powerbomb. Not really trying to hurricane run him over, he just basically rakes his eyes. And he throws him to the ropes to the floor. Aries follows up with the suicide dive, knocks them both back into the guardrail, and rolls back into the ring to gloat, and he heads back up top. Aries connects with the crown. He crowns him off the top rope and right to the back, rolls him back into the ring to continue his assault. He takes Hernandez down with a snapmare, goes back up top. Hernandez rolls out of the way this time, and Aries hits nothing but canvas. So Hernandez takes flight, drops Aries with a shoulder block, and a gorilla press slam, Ultimate Warrior style, which Aries had to get about 12 feet up in the air, if not higher. Hernandez sets up going for the border toss. He slides out, hits the rolling elbow, and Aries charges this time, and he shakes him off. He basically just pounces him down. So Aries bails with the tag team title belt, and Hernandez grabs him and tosses him back in the ring. Aries goes to hit him with the belt. He tosses him the belt instead to prompt the disqualification. Hernandez goes to hit it. The referee blocks it, and while he's distracted, Aries pulls out the chain and pops him with it with a 1, 2, 3. So, a 4.5 minute match. Austin Aries is your winner. It was alright. I mean, I kind of wish we could go back in the day, and instead of Hernandez getting this push, I really wish Homicide would have stayed with the company. Can you imagine a Homicide Chavo Guerrero team, and this match would have been Homicide against Austin Aries instead of Hernandez? Hernandez is fine, but it wasn't, I mean, he's not completely my cup of tea. I mean, I don't mind him. He's not a bad wrestler. I mean, he can be a little sloppy at times. And Aries did guide him through a pretty adequate match when it came down to it. So, we're, of course, on the collision course with Chavo Hernandez and Kaz and Daniels for Aries and Rude at Lockdown. And I got no problem with that, like I said. So we see Joseph Park backstage, and he's eating a giant pile of ribs. So Park tells Sting, just choose me. And Sting shrugs him off, and he catches up with Matt Morgan. Of course, he said, now you know what a rib is. So basically, he's eating ribs yet. I get the joke. Anyway, sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. So he runs down Matt Morgan the hallway, and Sting goes, I want you to join Team TNA. You're looking for an opportunity to shine. You're looking for a way to stand out. And you're looking for a chance to prove yourself. How about join Team TNA and help us get rid of aces and eights? And Morgan says, basically, that Hulk put you up to this. I'm not doing anything for you or Hulk Hogan because anybody that is friends with Hulk Hogan and around Hulk Hogan is guilty by association. And he turns down the offer, flat out. So, basically, the Hogan grudge continues. And I got no problem with that, but I don't understand where it's going. I think maybe Joseph Park against Matt Morgan somewhere down the road, possibly. And why is Joey Ryan not on my screen anymore? Maybe he'll come back. Hopefully he will. I guess he's on the list this week. The Robbie T show. And I'll bring them up in a minute. And that is a nice roundabout way to get to something we get later in the night. So we come back from commercial. Kenny King's in the ring, and here comes Rob Van Dam. And we're going to talk about, once again, this is for the X Division Championship. It was a 9.5 minute match. And as usual, we're going to go to the finish. So there's a chin lock. And Kenny King has it locked on. Van Dam breaks it with a jawbreaker. And King hits the enziguri, only gets a 2 count. King goes for the full mount. And he's pounding with the rights and lefts. He's mounted, of course, after the suplex. And of course, he rolls in a rolling suplex into the mount and he starts pounding away. But anyway, King goes for the cover, only gets a 2 count. He whips Van Dam in the corner. Van Dam gets the boot up for the corner splash attempt. Rolls him up with a body scissors. Tremendous maneuver there for Van Dam. It shows his flexibility. And he only got the 2 count. He goes for the rolling monkey flip. Kenny King lands on his feet. Van Dam drops him quickly. He goes for the rolling thunder. This time he goes up top, going for the 5-star. But this time he makes the 2 Cold Scorpio gesture. And for the first time in forever, he goes for the 450. And Van Dam usually doesn't connect with the 450, so I knew it wasn't going to. And basically the 1, 2, and there's a 3 count, but it's kind of botched. The finish was kind of botched a bit because Van Dam got his hand in the way and the referee didn't count 3. So I guess that's what we're looking at. I think that probably was supposed to be the finish, but we go back to it. King hits the Royal Flush kind of awkwardly and gets the 1-2-3. So, Kenny King is finally the X Division champion. And it was really weird. It just didn't work. I mean, the match wasn't the greatest. It was fine, but it wasn't as good as it could have been, honestly, to be totally honest with you. So, that doesn't give me a problem because Kenny King is now X Division champion, so that means that he's going to be the one to lead the division now, and I got no problem with that. And Rob Van Dam can do whatever they want to do with Rob Van Dam. They can use him to put over younger guys. They can use Van Dam. Don't forget, Van Dam's in his 40s. I mean, honestly, he doesn't look it, but Van Dam's in his 40s. I mean, his best days are past him, but he can still go. He can still go in the ring. I mean, his heyday is over, but I mean, Van Dam is still a credible superstar in TNA, and still can be used to put over people as such. So, I mean, and he's still over with the crowds. Obviously, you still use him. So, Kenny King, where does he go now? There's not really a top contender to the X Division Championship. So, I guess we're going to find out in the next couple weeks on Impact who's going to be that #1 contender to the X Division Championship. And I think they'll figure that out sooner rather than later. So, Kurt Angle catches up with Sting backstage. He shows Sting his TNA list. He's like, He's like, wait a minute, are you kidding me? Him? Of all people? So Angle's confused about exactly who the person's going to be, and after finding out who, I totally understand why he was confused. Well, from a wrestling fan perspective, I totally understand. From my perspective, I think it makes total sense, but I'll get to that later. So Sting says, desperate times call for desperate measures, and just trust me. So Angle goes, okay, fine. So they go their separate ways. Now we announce our teams for Lockdown. So once again, we show the end of last week's show where Hogan got attacked. And we see a Twitter post that Hogan posted about the gash in his leg, basically saying there's going to be hell to pay, or heel to pay in this case. Sorry, Hogan, bad grammar. Anyway, so the Aces and Eights theme hits, and here comes Devon and everyone. But this time, it's just Mr. Anderson, Doc, Knox, and Garrett Bischoff. Of course, Wes Briscoe is not there. I would think he is going to be preparing himself for Kurt Angle at Lockdown, which is going to be in a steel cage. And obviously, the higher power, or I don't know if he's necessarily the leader, but the only masked man left in Aces and Eights is still in the back. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, basically, Devon gets on the mic looking like, I think Devon looks a lot like, I think I want to use Idris Elba, possibly, for Devon, maybe. I think that's who I'm looking at. I think that makes the most sense. I think, yeah, he definitely does look like Idris Elba. But anyway, Devon grabs the mic and says, this is the club that will dominate TNA in 2013. The same thing happened at Bound for Glory will also happen at Lockdown. He says, Sting will be leading his team to the slaughter. And speaking of the devil, here comes Sting with Team TNA. And of course, he's standing at the entrance, and that makes total sense. Sting announces his teammates for the Lockdown match. So Samoa Joe comes out, calls him a killer basically, and he says sorry, and he basically says sorry for what, and then of course sorry about your damn luck hits, and Cowboy James Storm comes out, and then of course Magnus comes out till there's one guy left, and basically he draws back and forth with Mr. Anderson. He's saying, let's just say it's showtime, and he's like, no. Yeah, we know. It's your catchphrase. We get it. It's showtime. He's like, no, it's showtime. And he's like, yeah, we get it. We understand. It's your catchphrase. You don't have to say it again. Who's your fourth guy? And lo and behold, it was showtime. And he's standing right behind the Aces and Eights. Yes, Eric Young makes his return to TNA. And he starts brawling with Aces and Eights. And all the babyfaces hit the ring. And we have a nice little brawl. So TNA clears the ring. And they stare everyone down and Sting's music hits. So, I think these teams are going to work really well for Aces and Eights versus Team TNA at Lockdown. I think it's going to be an awesome Lethal Lockdown match. I think it's going to work really, really well. And I really think that this is the end of Aces and Eights at Lockdown. I don't think we're going to go to Bound for Glory, I think, or even Slammiversary. I think Aces and Eights ends at Lockdown. The problem is you just put out merchandise for them. So that makes me think there's a possible chance that they're going to drag this out a little bit longer. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, Gut Check is up next, and this time the Knockouts division is going to be showcased. Ivelisse Velez. Yes, the same Ivelisse that was injured, that was on the series of Tough Enough, you know, the one that Stone Cold Steve Austin did. And Ivelisse is going to basically show in this video that she's from Puerto Rico, and she is trained in mixed martial arts. And of course, with the tie-in to Bellator, this bodes really well for her chances of winning her gut check match. She basically is talking about how now she had a strained relationship with her mom that was pretty much started because of her choosing the career of professional wrestling, and now everything is healed, and she's also lived on the streets, but basically she's ready to go and she's ready to make her dream come true. So Ivelisse is going to be up next for TNA. So next we see, when we get back from commercial, the moments ago of the Aces and Eights are leaving the building. So they're angry. And of course they're gone. They leave. They've gone. So we don't know where they went exactly, but they left. So Kurt Angle grabs the cameraman and says, "Just follow me." So Angle is kind of like following, like closely, like creepily following. And we don't know where he's going to go with this. I think I got an idea, but well, I know exactly. But of course, I as a wrestling fan think I have an idea, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the next person that's going to be facing Ivelisse is going to be Lady Tapa. And Lady Tapa is the niece of the Barbarian, and niece doesn't really work for me. I think daughter works for me because they look a whole lot alike. And basically, she's talking about how she has a drive to be a professional wrestler, and of course, wrestling's in her blood, and she's happy to try to make it here in TNA. So JB comes out, and he announces the two gut check competitors. And like I said on Twitter, basically, WWE used no divas this week whatsoever. None. No divas match on Raw. I don't know if there's any on SmackDown or the main event, but or main event, but I don't know because I obviously don't watch those and I can't. But when it comes down to it, nothing on Raw. But Impact gives us two, and this match was good. It was 4 minutes long. So Tapa went for the Goozle, and it got reversed into the arm drag. So Ivelisse locked on the standing guillotine choke, and Tapa used her strength to fight out. She sets her up for the Samoan drop, and he strikes her way out and transitioned into a standing rear naked choke. This is definitely very MMA influenced. So Lady Tapa escapes. This time she applies a wrist lock, so Velez kicks her way out and runs right into the big boot. You know, the kick of fear that the Barbarian used to utilize back in the Faces of Fear and, of course, the old Powers of Pain days. So Tapa whips Velez into the ropes and drops her with and Velez comes off and drops her with a kneeling clothesline. You know why? Because Tapa is pretty tall in this case, obviously. So Tapa with the slam and drops her with the headbutt. So Tapa whips Velez into the corners repeatedly, and this time she misses the splash. She hits the DDT from inside the middle ropes and regains the offense. Ivelisse ducks the clothesline, hits the standing Hurricane Rana, which looked amazing. Ivelisse Velez in this match reminded me of the start of Lita. Like when Amy Dumas first started with the WWF back in the day. I remember like the teaming with S.A. Rios, and this is what she reminded me of. Even in look, she reminded me of. She had the fiery red hair, she had the red gear. I mean, she reminded me a whole lot of Lita in this match. But I'll get to that in a minute. So Tapa picks her up and hits the Samoan drop, and she only gets the 2 count. So Velez ends up locking her up with another guillotine choke. She kneels. This time Tapa has to kneel down, and she can't take it anymore, and she taps out. So 4 minutes, and pretty good match, actually. Really good knockouts match. It'll be interesting to see which one of these two get into TNA. I'm pretty sure that Ivelisse is actually going to end up in TNA, and I have no problem with that, because I think it worked really, really well. But I have no problem with Lady Tapa getting a I want both of them to get in, just like I want the Blossom Twins to get in. I mean, they're developmental now, so they'll make it to the roster eventually. So it's a good time to be knockouts in TNA right now. So after the match, of course, Austin Aries catches up with Jeff Hardy. And I say, I'm pulling for you at Lockdown because Bully Ray is the golden boy now. I mean, I know you used to be the golden boy. And now I hope you know how it feels to be disrespected because you're not the golden boy, just like I was back when you were the golden boy when you were TNA World Heavyweight Champion originally. And Hardy's like, yeah, whatever. And of course, he's doing his what Austin Aries referred to as Hardy squats. He makes fun of the old arm flailing entrances, and entertaining. So we get to our commercial break, and we are supposed to get an update on AJ Styles. Well, we had a video package. AJ is longtime best friend and his wife are talking about AJ being completely changed over the year. How everything has happened, everything's breaking down. He's not wanting to be a father anymore to his sons. He doesn't want to care anymore about anything. And the stuff with Claire Lynch nearly took him over the edge. And of course, his wife was even doubting if he was even doing anything to care about their relationship anymore. And basically, before anything else can be said, she walks off saying, "This is too personal." So all of a sudden, his friend is talking about AJ, and the next thing you know, he walks in. AJ Styles looks like hell. Looks like a common vagrant. He's got 500 o'clock shadow. He's got hair all messed up, and he just walks in, just looking dumbfounded at why anybody would be there. And then he drives away on the Batcycle and just bums out. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, honestly, AJ Styles has come a long way, and I really think that they're going to do something with AJ when he comes back. But right now, it's just time for him to not care. AJ's in his not caring portion of this storyline, and I like this. I like this a lot. And I really think this actually can go somewhere. So, hopefully we'll see AJ Styles sooner rather than later. Now, after this, we talked about what has been going on lately with the problems between Robbie E and Robbie T. And of course, everything with beating him in the bro-off, to basically causing him to get sucker punched by Rockstar Spud, who won British Boot Camp, and of course him losing to Rockstar Spud. So Robbie E finally snapped last week and slapped Robbie T across the face, and he just walked out. So here we go. Robbie E standing in the middle of the ring, mic in the hand, and he says, "Sometimes in life, a bro has to admit when there's a bigger and better bro." And I think I knew where this was headed, but I was totally wrong. But I think there's still time to do this. I really think that will happen. Robbie E says he has come to that realization, and he brings out his friend Robbie T. I mean, Rob Terry, can you come to the ring? So he opens up the velvet rope for Rob Terry, and of course he's sporting the same freaking sweater that Robbie E has, as usual. Holding the ropes down. So Terry enters on the opposite side. Robbie says their beef has gotten way out of hand, and he apologizes for him slapping him last week. He says, "I completely crossed the line. Being friends for 2 years has meant the world to him, and he wants to show just how much Rob Terry means to him." Robbie says, "You're the better bro, and I want one more bro off just for old time's sake. And let's have some fun." So Robbie E does a little dance, and Terry cracks the smile, which kind of works, I guess. So Robbie E says Rob Terry is the bro-off champion and deserves a spotlight. So his weird music starts, and the lights get all messed up and crazy like. Then all of a sudden, Terry takes his sweater off and is getting ready to get into his magic mic routine. And Robbie E runs in and smashes the VIP entrance sign over the head of Rob Terry, who totally no-sells it with the frame around his neck, and Robbie E bails like he powders to the floor. So Robbie E was announcing on Twitter that he was bringing something to Impact, and immediately made me think that the Big Bro was going to end up being the Big O. I think that the Big O will end up with Robbie E and TNA, and I think that's the perfect way to do it. I think that Rob Terry is finally going to go his separate ways with Robbie E, and that, of course, is going to lead up to a match on Impact somewhere down the road. But I think this is a brilliant way to bring the Big O into TNA. If they've had any indication or any inclination of bringing the Big O into TNA, this is the opportunity to do it, and I think this would work really nicely. And obviously, you can have the Big O against Rob Terry. This match wouldn't be the greatest, but I mean, there's got to be a way you can make it better. So, that's what I would do. So, Rob Terry's not the greatest in the ring either, but it's got to be better than nothing, so. The slow burn of the Robbie E, Robbie T breakup does continue tonight on Impact, or at least last night on Impact. So Austin Aries caught up with Bully Ray, and he's lifting weights, and Aries says, "I'm pulling for you." Ray goes, "You're not going to stir me up. And you should get used to wearing that tag team title, because you're not going to be wearing the World Heavyweight title anytime soon." Ray says, "Get out of my face." And of course Aries leaves, and Bully ends up calling him a wise ass in the promo. So we get to a commercial break, and Kurt Angle is still sneaking around the backstage area. I'm going to take the fight to Aces and Eights. He walks through this door, and this door is probably leading to the Aces and Eights clubhouse. So I think that's where we're going with this. So we get to our main event of the evening, and our main event went 11 minutes, and it was Bad Influence against Jeff Hardy and Bully Ray. So we're going to get to... I'm going to go ahead and call it here, because that's how it works here on my YouTube channel. So Bully and Daniels start off. Daniels hits a knee to the midsection and starts off, and he chops Bully in the corner. And of course Daniels is pretty proud of himself, and then Bully Ray turns him around and drops him with a clothesline. He backs Daniels in the corner, does the whisper to get the crowd silent. Of course it barely works, even though there's only about 1,000 people can fit in the impact zone. And he chopped the daylights out of Christopher Daniels' chest. And this right after a series of headbutts to the sternum. Really interesting headbutts. I've never seen a headbutt to the sternum done like that before. So he sends Daniels face first in the corner and hits another open hand chop. Kaz interferes this time, hits a high back body drop. Of course, Daniels and Kaz can both get extreme elevation on those back body drops for his troubles. So Daniels attacks Bully from behind to gain the advantage. Kaz tags in, they double suplex Bully Ray, and double Gangnam Style. So that was awesome. Anyway, they get back up. Bully clotheslines them both back to the mat, and he does a mocking version of Gangnam Style as well. And he sets up the double dusty and the double bionic elbows. Jeff gets in the ring and they clear the ring, and they stand tall as we go to commercial. When we come back to commercial, Jeff is now the legal man. So Hardy sends Ray into Kaz in the corner, and Hardy follows up with Poetry in Motion. So Daniels tries to attack from behind, but they move. He charges into Kaz instead. Hardy goes for Poetry in Motion again on Daniels, but Kaz grabs the leg and allows Daniels to attack and gain the advantage. So Daniels sends Hardy into Kaz's boots and stomps a mud hole in him. So Kaz tags in Daniels with a hip toss onto Hardy for the 2 count. He basically hip tossed his partner onto Hardy, and of course Kaz landed with a leg drop. That's pretty much what happened. So Hardy breaks out, and Kaz pushed him back into the corner. Bad Influence. Daniels tags in and connects with a headbutt. So Daniels gets Hardy in the sidewalk slam, and Kaz hits a springboard leg drop, which looked amazing for the kick out. Barely kicks out. So Daniels works over Hardy in the corner, whips him to the opposite side. Hardy catches Daniels with the elbow, whisper in the wind, and both men do the double down. Hot tag to Bully Ray, and he lays waste to Daniels with clothesline, back body drop on him and on Kazarian. So Ray hits the Uranagi and only gets a 2 count. Kaz tries to come off the top. Ray grabs him, rocket launcher. This time he hits nothing but canvas, so Bully takes Daniels down with a sidewalk slam, goes for the 1-2, and Kaz tags in. Ray knocks Kaz out to the floor, tags Hardy in. Hardy goes for the swanton. Kaz crouches him up top while the referee is distracted momentarily. And Daniels takes Ray out with an enziguri and the STO on Hardy for the 1-2 and a kick out. So Ray pushes Kazarian off the corner and connects with the big boot. Ray chops the back of Daniels, who has Hardy in a corner mount. And he drops Daniels, picks him up with going for the electric chair, and thought they were going to go Doomsday. He drops him back, electric chair, Hardy comes off, swanton, 1, 2, 3. Great main event here to end Impact on a high note. And Bully once again proving once again he is the most versatile tag team wrestler in TNA, as he can team with anybody and make it absolutely exciting. Not much tension between the two, but there's enough that we can have an exciting match at Lockdown. And don't forget, there's still 1 week of television to go before the pay-per-view next Sunday. So, Kurt Angle is now shown what he was doing. And yes, it was the Aces and Eights clubhouse that he broke into. And he starts beating on the Aces and Eights member. He goes face-to-face with the last member. So Angle smashes a beer bottle over his head, and he unmasks him. Angle looks in disbelief at who it is. He's like, "It was you? It was you all along? I mean, I never thought it would be you." Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what Angle was saying. And the other Aces and Eights members just, like, mug Kurt Angle from behind, and that's how we go to black. So, what a nice hanger-on for this episode of Impact. A lot, like I said before at the start of this, a lot of unanswered questions. And we don't know where we're going from here. Who is the now unmasked member of Aces and Eights? And will we ever find out? Will we find out who is going to be the man that was unmasked? I mean, it was a big guy. I mean, it could have been Joseph Park. It's possible. I mean, it could have been anybody at this point. But I'll tell you right now, this is going to be a reason to get a lot of people to tune in to next week's Impact. A lot of things. Of course, it's the go-home show for Lockdown. And we've had a lot of storyline progression. Like I said, a lot of unanswered questions. Some good matches. Some great matches. Not bad matches, but a couple botches here and there. Just kind of thrown in every once in a while. But I enjoyed Impact. I thought it was really well done this week, and I'm happy to talk about it. I think in the very near future, you're going to see the end of Aces and Eights. I think in the very near future, you're going to see Bully Ray as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Whether he is going to be the final member of Aces and Eights, which there's no way that's possible, because obviously he wasn't the guy that was under the mask last night. They just got done wrestling, so of course that's not going to happen. But if he's going to join Devon again in Aces and Eights, and that's going to be, he basically used Brooke to get the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, but I don't think they're going to win that way. I think that Jeff Hardy's going to stay babyface, and that's not a problem, because wow, Bully Ray is a great babyface, and I think it's working really well, because the fans want to cheer for him, and now they are, and it works really well. So, there's a lot of different directions TNA is going. The gut check match was good, and we're now ready for Lockdown. One more week away for television to set us up for the pay-per-view and get all the matches intact, ready to roll. I think Lethal Lockdown is going to be awesome. Aces and Eights against Sting, Magnus, Samoa Joe, Showtime Eric Young, and Cowboy James Storm. I think it's going to be awesome. And I think it's going to be a great match. And of course, Wes Briscoe and Kurt Angle in the cage, going to be great. Of course, you have the three-way for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. Of course, you have Aries and Rude defending against Kaz and Daniels and Chavo and Hernandez. Who knows what's going to happen with Kenny King in the X Division Championship? Maybe a rematch with Rob Van Dam, possibly. And there's so many superstars looming on the horizon that want to be on Lockdown, so it's going to be interesting to see where they end up as well. So, great episode of Impact. Very much enjoyed. Once again, wrestling fans, join me again this coming Tuesday for my Raw recap. And I'm going to be talking Monday Night Raw, our old school Raw, which is going to be our 5th week of television. Well, 5 weeks until WrestleMania. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And, of course, we're going to start the slow build. And apparently this is a very slow build for Taker Punk at Mania. And it's official now, like I said in the last video. So, we'll get to that. Lockdown is next Sunday. It's going to be amazing. Cannot wait for it. So, a lot of things to look forward to as a wrestling fan. So, once again, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to try to get this uploaded before I go to work, if I possibly can. If not, you'll get it later tonight. But until tomorrow, that's all I got to say about that.